The definition of civil rights is the rights of citizens to political and social freedom and equality. These rights are granted to every U.S. citizen today, but before 1968, not everyone had these rights. The civil rights movement had a goal of securing legal rights to women and African Americans. This movement lasted over a decade. A similar movement going on in the modern world today is kneeling during the national anthem. Started by San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick, this movement was done to protest racial injustice and police brutality in America. This started a trend. Other professional athletes started joining in. This is similar to the civil rights movement because the kneeling movement protested violence brought out because of how people felt about other races, just like the civil rights movement where many people protested violence and segregation made by whites who disliked African Americans. These movements are different because the kneeling movement is on a much smaller scale from the civil rights movement. The kneeling movement only protests police brutality, while the civil rights movement protests many different acts of racial injustice. Songs from the civil rights movement
then my understanding's blurred.
are much different from songs today. Songs from the civil rights movement include Tree of Life, Eyes on the Prize, We Shall Overcome, Only a Pawn in Their Game, and If I Had a Hammer. These songs were mostly made up of African American spirituals, gospel, and folk music. The lyrics in these songs influenced many people to help join the cause of giving everyone their rights. Most songs gave out the same or similar messages in their lyrics. All these songs give out a sense of positivity throughout the song. The Ku Klux Klan, also known as the KKK, were a group of white supremacists that terrorized African Americans. Their primary goal was to reestablish white supremacy. The KKK killed many African Americans and also burned crosses and did marches. Women were important to the civil rights movement. They led protests and were lawyers. Although they did many great things, they were always overshadowed by men. One important activist was Rosa Parks. She led many civil rights movements and started the Montgomery bus boycott when she was arrested for sitting in a whites-only seat on a public bus. She differs from men because she also contributes in women's rights movements. Athletes and coaches throughout the century used their participation in sports to alter the racial atmosphere. Sports have helped the civil rights movement by allowing all races to participate. I've already discussed Colin Kaepernick, but there are many others who've changed the world, including Muhammad Ali. Ali was a black boxer that supported civil rights and racial equality. He often spoke about injustice and racial inequality and brought black power into America. He was very influential among Americans. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 ended segregation in all public places and banned employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. It is considered one of the best achievements of the civil rights movement.